Was there any conflicts, Matthew, with it, or was it okay?
It merged fine. I had originally, there were some conflicts, but I went through around like 4 o'clock and resolved them all. So saying that, let me get back to the master actually for when I do this.
Yeah, it'd be great to see that, and kind of trying to stall, because I know Jen was pretty heavily involved in a couple of the issues that got merged.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice for her to be here to help talk about them. But yeah, whatever we can kind of demo and show until she gets here.
Sure. I could start. Give me 1 second. I'm just relaunching it from a master now. I just realized I was still in branch before.
She is. All right. The team is complete.
Oh, perfect timing.
Hi, Jen.
Hello. Uh-oh, can't hear you.
Hello. Can you
There
hear
it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's your kid? Did you take my suggestion and give her a lollipop?
Actually, she's never had a lollipop before.
Oh.
She's just
She would lose her little mind.
Totally.
She's just in that phase where she has to be clinging to me every 2 seconds, you know?
Yeah.
Cute though, yeah.
A lovely and probably troublesome time.
Mm-hmm.
It's endearing, but sometimes you're just like,
You're like, get off. Yeah.
My girls earned the nickname of Barnacle from some camp counselors here.
that's so funny.
They just run up and just hug him and just like not let him go. While Matthew's getting his demo together, Jen, we were just talking before you got on about just how it felt this week to have less structure and everything. You know, kind of some people were saying like it was nice to have the option to kind of just pick up the next issue without waiting for the weekend and stuff. But
Definitely, it was really nice.
Was anything like, how did it feel? Was it more or less stressful, or feel like you put more or less time into it, or anything like that?
I don't think so. I feel like, at least for me, I don't know how you felt, Ashley, but I felt like it felt like the same. It did give me a little push to like be like, oh my god, we could finish another one. And I was like, okay, you have to slow down here. Like
slippery slope.
Yeah, it's like you have done enough. Just pace yourself. So
yeah, right.
That was like the only issue probably I had for myself personally, but yeah.
Yeah. I think we had some like very good conversations this week, more so because we've worked together a long time now. I don't know, it just felt very like I think I understood the concepts more as well. So it's just like we just had some very good conversations. If you can have some good conversations at the start of the week and do a little bit on your own, I think that kind of helps.
Yeah, I think the flexibility like lends itself to just feeling a little bit more free to explore what you think needs like a deeper dive or something like that. Because I think we did that with context, and the two of us had a little bit of talk about why probably in this app it might not be necessary for all the things that we were originally planning it for. And then so that was nice, and like just having like different conversations like that, just kind of like at a higher level. Also just like thinking about planning the app and things, that was nice. But that might not also necessarily be hand in hand with just because it's Kanban.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
Cool. I'm ready if you want me to start sharing.
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. Oh, you have to permit the sharing.
Oh, right.
I changed that to know that.
Is that a new setting now?
Yeah, it's I have it set to one participant can share at a time. So I'm setting it now to multiple participants can share. Oh, no, that's not enough. Sorry. Who can share? Only host or all participants? There we go. All right.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's because Zoom got so popular with the quarantine stuff. And
Yeah,
that makes sense. There's been a lot of unfortunate stories of people like essentially bombing people's Zoom calls.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
So Amber, where would you like me to start? So here's how it looks when we first load it up. So I have it in the iPhone view. I think you kind of mentioned the last.
Yeah.
That's another way to do it. Yeah, so this is how it first loads. If you zoom in, you can see, so this has obviously some of Aisling and Jen's pins in there. So kind of both working together. So if you really zoom in, here's the dot, right?
Right.
And then when you click share location, it changes the bottom here to location shared, and then it has the pulsating. I live in a little suburban area, so I gotta zoom out a little bit to see the other pins.
There they are. Cool.
Yeah. Yes. Mostly probably winery stuff around here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can open the code. Do you want me to, Amber, do you want to take over some of this part?
Oh yeah, you can just start at where did we drill everything down?
All the way out.
App.js. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
So like we were talking about before, we switched from context to just bringing things down by props since the app isn't so big and context is kind of overcomplicating things for at this point. So we had that handle click function, and we took that along with map properties and we essentially drilled them down. But map properties, like we said, has the default up there, and the default's the cohort, and then that's them being drilled down. Oh, sorry, I'm going too fast. Apologies.
Yeah, that's the
there you go.
document part.
And yeah, map properties going to main because that essentially has oh, I've already said it has our defaults. And then when you go into map, we have the fetch nearby places that's in use effect, so it just automatically updates as you move. It'll just like constantly send new API calls and resave whatever new latitude and longitude you're at as the old one, so just auto refresh. And then we just bring that down into Google Map React and into the My Location pin as well, which is just like the pin with the CSS that's tied to it, so it automatically updates. I think that's kind of all the relevant stuff for us. Oh, and like the handle click function, I think we probably showed that, yeah, last time. But yeah, that just drills down to footer where the button literally is. So it switches from shared to unshared and starts that call.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say the biggest recent changes is, yeah, we took the context out. The big thing here for getting the map to move, the dot, because this was default center, default zoom, and just putting it just center and zoom, and then setting that to the default in the beginning, and then that changes once you do the handle. I believe it's the handle click. It'll update this part anyway. And so it still keeps the zoom kind of with the spread operator here, but then it just changes the lat and the long. And then I implemented a few of the suggestions for the destructuring within the parameters that Jen made. And then, yeah, we also added the prop type for type checking as well.
Very cool.
But
nice.
Yeah.
And there was a question about prop types, right? Because Jen, I think you had made a comment like, why don't we just kind of do it directly? It's like really simple or something.
Just wondering what like the usual what do you call it, like the best practices? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the convention is to use this prop types kind of package or whatever. For certain things, it seems like overkill. Like, you know, it's like they're so simple or whatever, but there are other types that are harder to test. Like it's easy to kind of get it wrong or something. Like if we were saying that something, it has to be an array. I guess nowadays it's a lot easier. There is actually an array, array method, but back in the day, in order to tell that something was an array, it was like it would report itself as an object. We had to see if it had certain methods on it. So like it was kind of convoluted. So just leave it to somebody who's worked out all the edge cases for you.
Yeah, and I kind of like this too because it made me go back and like where we first set allow marker, it was null. And so that gave me an error because it needed to be a Boolean. So it kind of forced me to like think through the props and each type that was going down. So I like it for that. And then like say this was, where was it? Say I had func there and it was an object, it would throw a warning into the console as well. And kind of give you a heads up.
Yeah, prop types aren't something that we push in the not very much in the projects really at all, but it's cool that y'all like implemented it, and we could go deeper with it if we want to. Some places that you go to work, like they will require everything to have a typeset, so it's not a bad habit to get into.
Yeah, and I've heard TypeScript is getting more and more popular, so this is kind of just nice and in-between version, isn't it? Or kind of.
Yeah, it kind of gets you used to the paradigm, right? So. Cool, nice.
Alrighty, I'll stop that.
Do you want to go next, Jen?
Yes, so let me share my screen. Okay. So what did you want to look at first, Aisling? Did you want to look at the demo?
Yeah. I was just thinking there before we start on our one, it's nice when you have worked, like, so I worked on that before. So when in the demos, I'm like way more informed than previously. It's different when you just see other people's ACs and it's like, oh yeah, okay. When you've actually tried to do it and then you see how someone else did it. Yeah. So that's definitely a good thing for this new method that we're trying. Yeah, so our task was to be able to click on the pins and show a title, description, and photo, and also a link to the Wikipedia. So there it is.
If you zoom in.
Fantastic. We can work on that. That's probably the meter.
I just love that statue just on the other side of the river there.
Oh, this one?
So creepy. what even? Like, why is his head so small? And what is he wearing?
No idea.
I didn't cop onto that because that's the one you put into the thing. So yeah, it was actually like it was kind of complicated at the start of the week, and I think then on Thursday we had a really good breakthrough. You can probably show the code, I think, Jen, and we can talk.
Okay. Where do you want to start off an app?
Yeah, so what did we add here? So we added current pin and set current pin. Nearby places was from the last one, was it, Jen?
Yes, and it was moved from map out into app just because of the way that we're now passing the actual component instead of the props down. So everything is going to be probably living in app state unless it really, really only needs to live in the component.
Yeah. We tried to keep app as clean as possible though, but it just, it made sense to put everything there. So yeah, we implemented it in footer as well. You see in the return function there. And yeah, we don't need pin here, I don't think. So we could probably take that out.
Which pin?
The imports.
Import pin.
Yes.
They're already calling it. I think I removed it from the last one. And then display information is the information that we're displaying. We'll probably show us footer next. So this is kind of the aha moment for me. It was like, if it's not this, it's this. Like that's in layman's terms, that makes a lot of sense to me. So we did this idea of like a default footer, which is what exists, and then if it's not the default footer, it's our description. So that kind of like made sense in my head. But that took us a little bit of a while to kind of work out the just little things like the brackets and all this kind of stuff. So we did like a ternary operator at the end there, and that was kind of something happened. What happened again, Jen? Was it we clicked on something, but it didn't, we couldn't change between the two pins. Do you remember that?
Yeah. So originally we had made, we had changed footer before we created the states at the app level. And so we had already unpacked title, description, and image up here. And then put them in here to pass it down to a pin description component as props. But because we didn't name it that, we're actually just passing in current pin. Those three things were null, and so it was always only showing the default pin description all the time. And so it was, if we clicked on a different one, even though it was passing information down, it wasn't actually rendering it properly. And so that was a quick fix, just putting current pin instead of that into here, and then our pins rendered, and we were very happy.
Yeah, it was kind of a nice area to discover, I thought. Like, there was good learning in it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and then the other part was the clicking on other parts of the map. Where does that pin description?
Honestly, that's a good example of something, an AC that could move out to a separate story, probably.
Yeah, that kind of, yeah, because I found that very hard. Actually, Jen figured it out fairly quickly. We were both working on it the same night, but I was playing around with info marker and all this kind of stuff, but then you found it in options, wasn't it?
Yes.
So how did you handle it?
Where is it again?
It's in map.
Oh, yeah. So it was options, clickable icons, false, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a new term for me.
I just got lucky when I Googled. That's how I discovered that.
No, but it's good. It was good because I was playing around with lots of different stuff and just nothing was working. So, yeah.
And then we have our on-click handler here. Did you want to talk about it in pin?
Yeah, so that was the other aspect. That was kind of the easiest part of it, the on-click handler, I'd say. But because we already had all this information about image and all this stuff already from the last one. So again, it's a Turner operator there as well, isn't it? Yeah. So yeah, that was fairly simple once we had established current pin and display information. Then we were just kind of utilizing it in various ways. I'd say the hardest part was probably the error that we made earlier between the pins and then also the extra part of the map. Everything else came together, but it was good. There was a lot of learning in this one, definitely.
Cool. Yeah, it's great. I'm interested in the channel. It's not over there. But it's like the app's starting to look like a real app. It's really fun.
Yeah.
And like it's already kind of useful, right? Like you can kind of go look around and browse.
And see weird things like with that statue.
Right. That statue is so weird.
But I think the good thing, like it's a little bit harder than the one we had before, but there's a lot of people that have done this kind of stuff before. So the information is out there, like on maps and stuff. So, and it's like so invaluable. It's in so many things now. So.
Oh, it comes up all the time, yeah.
It does, yeah. So it's nice to learn all this stuff.
Cool. Good job. It's great. Love it.
Thank
you. Yeah, it's really coming together. It's cool. I'm impressed actually, yeah, just that you're figuring all this stuff out. I mean, it's like when I built it, like I knew I was going to be able to because I've done a ton of Google Maps stuff in the past, but like there was just like things I was like, oh my God, like it was just like I think I kind of barreled into it and just like built it instead of kind of thinking through, doing any kind of planning at all. So, do as I say, not as I do, I guess. Cool. So yeah, so I'll probably take over the screen sharing, and I'm gonna just kind of run through. This isn't a very well, I think that's going to be the window. Oh, allow Zoom to share your screen. So I just got a new laptop, so my permissions are not quite set up yet. So 1 second. But it has Touch ID, so it shouldn't take long. Oh, famous last words. All right. Oh, crap. All right, so in order for me to share my screen, I'm going to have to quit Zoom. Shoot.
Guess we can all just pop back.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the recording. Like I'm going to have to I'll have to splice the two recordings together or something. That's all right. I've done it before. Okay, I'm gonna quit really quick, and then it'll be the same link. So just come right back in.
Okay,
right.
Sounds good.
Recording again. All right, and we'll try it again. So, oh, now okay, that's better. I can see the windows now in the Zoom share. So that means it's gonna work. All right, so y'all should be looking at a little browser window. It's got the project in it. So we're going to talk about Lighthouse. So has anybody just played around with it, looked at it, tried it out? No? Okay, no problem. So how this topic came up is I'm like in the process of redesigning my personal blog. So this is a blog post from 2008. That's how long it's been since I last built my own blog software, which I don't know why anyone would do that in the first place, but I've done it twice now. I mean, to be fair, it's a really good learning experience. So I wouldn't say don't do it, but anyway. So when I first built my blog, I was trying to recreate WordPress. I have all these features, tag files, and all that stuff. And so it's a little bit complicated. It's like a PHP MySQL application. And when I rebuilt it, I made it a lot simpler. It's a lot less code. So the other blog has dozens of files that run it and stuff. This one is literally really 2 files that do most of the work. And it's like a lot less code. And I just publish markdown files to a repo, and then they show up on the site. So the whole thing is just like incredibly, like so much simpler, including I just built up the CSS from scratch. And the other one, I had a bunch of other stuff in there. So anyway, I was looking at the Lighthouse scores for the two. So to get to Lighthouse, you click on the little Lighthouse tab. And in Chrome, it's actually called Audit. And this is Microsoft Edge, so it's called Lighthouse. And you have an option to do a mobile or a desktop audit. And this thing is publisher's ads, probably not too important, but the other ones are all worth looking at. So you just generate your report, and you see it goes into, it makes a little mobile phone window, and it goes through and does a bunch of tests, a bunch of automated stuff, loads it from a cold cache and all this kind of stuff, and you get scores. So doing really well with that SEO, right? Performance is actually really good on this, but accessibility and best practices, we'll see what those are. Those aren't so hot. So even with performance, there's a little warning down here. So that's probably why it got counted down. So there are all these metrics, right? So the metrics are all slightly different. So first, contentful paint, like the first time the user actually content shows up on the page. I'm not sure what the speed index thing means. First, meaningful paint. The tool can understand sort of what's a header and what's sort of the main body of a page in most cases, and so it's making sure that there's something in that main section. And in this case, those two are kind of the same. Like there's not really a difference between those two. Time to interactive. So I don't know if you know this, but sometimes CSS, but always JavaScript will block the main thread. So JavaScript is what's called a single-threaded language. So there's one thread that runs all of the JavaScript on a page. There might be multiple sources for the JavaScript, and there's contention, for the resource and all kind of stuff. So time to interactive is when the CSS is in place, the JavaScript's in place, it's executed, and you can, it's not that the scripts are done necessarily, but you can actually kind of interact with the page for the first time. So in this case, 3.3 seconds from a cold cache, loading it over whatever type of network they test on, before you can actually start clicking around or submit a search form or whatever. First CPU idle, I think that always precedes time to interactive. But anyway, these are different metrics that you can kind of pay attention to. This max potential first input delay. So again, that's probably being blocked by JavaScript on the main thread. So anyway, that's the only thing that's really kind of hurting the performance, it looks like. Although these times aren't great, they're okay, but not super good. And you can kind of go through and you actually get little screenshots of the page as it's building and stuff. So they talk about opportunities, so I could remove. There's some CSS that never gets used, which makes sense. There's web fonts on here, and there's kind of a reset that I use, and this whole responsive framework and all this kind of stuff. So there's plenty of CSS that I could probably take out. There's this thing called pre-connects and preloads. There are these meta tags that you can put in the head of a page that kind of warm up, so I don't know how much you know about sort of domain names, or all the back and forth that has to happen before a browser can actually pull something down. We talked about cores before, so if you're on one page and you're accessing another domain, if the if you're a computer, not the browser really, but the computer hasn't encountered that domain name before, it has to actually go out and say, hey, DNS server, like, I have this domain name. Do you know where to go with it? And it'll come back and say, yeah, it's over here. It's at this IP address. And so the computer's like, cool, got it. And it goes off to that IP address, right? So that's like that takes some time. It's pretty fast in most cases, but it takes a little bit of time for that negotiation to happen. So you can do what's called a pre-connect. So this is a good one to do with fonts because you can, they're usually on some other domain like gstatic or some Google CDN kind of thing. So you can actually tell the browser, like, start negotiating that whole thing. Like, tell me how to get there, so that when I get to the point where I actually need it, I can just go and get it. I don't have to do the negotiation then, right? So anyway, I wasn't using pre-connect on the old blog. So anyway, so there's a couple things. There's this chaining of critical requests, which sometimes you can't get around. Like, some things depend on other things and stuff, but a bunch of opportunities for optimization. This one is a little shameful because I've thought of myself as an accessibility person since 2000 or something. Like, when I first kind of learned of it, I was like, I'm all in on this thing. I want the web to be equitable. But yet I still have I have a search form that doesn't have. I have like one form and I didn't even label it. You know what I mean? Like who am I? I don't even know. Like, anyway. And then this is one that I actually didn't know about that Lighthouse taught me about. So scaling. You can use a meta tag to prevent users from scaling the content. So it acts a little bit more like a native app or something. But, it is the web. Like, we should let people scale if they want to scale. So they recommend allowing users to scale up to 5 times, like zoom in by 5 times. So that's another place where I kind of fell over in that. So, and then some other best practices. So I have links to cross origin destinations. Not sure what that's about. So I guess that's going to have this target blank. So I don't know. I don't understand this one completely, to be honest. But I've actually had this warning inside of React too. It'll kind of pop in the same warning if you. Actually, what you might do this with those Wikipedia links. I don't know if you noticed this, but maybe we're not strictly. I don't know. But when I had those links, I just used ahrefs and just with a target, underscore blank or something to open the Wikipedia links in a different window, and they told me that wasn't safe. You have to put in this these relationship attributes, no opener, no refer. So, and I think what that does is those pages then they don't know where they came from, so it's a little bit safer somehow. I'm not sure exactly why. My page is old enough that I have jQuery 1.6.2 on the page, and that apparently has some vulnerabilities in it, so that's not great. And then there were some errors in the console. So those happen to be mostly errors that Google caused. So nothing I can really do about this. Anyway, all those things contribute to the scores being like, pretty average. Like some okay, are pretty good, and then a couple of not so great. So with the new blog, let's look at how I've done. Lighthouse, we're on mobile before, so generate the report. What? Look at that! It's all green. I'm so surprised. So the page is doing less. To be fair to myself, the old one, like, there's less code on the page and stuff. So that's probably why the performance is better. You can see all these times are quite a bit smaller. It's actually 50% faster or something than the other one. There are a couple things I could still do that I may try to take care of. Yeah, there's a picture of me, which actually it's pretty small, so there'll be a little nitpicky there if you ask me. But and then I have some images that I guess I don't know how you're supposed to defer those. Anyway, so there are a couple things I could do, like get to that coveted 100 score. Accessibility. So yeah, the thing here that's happening is there's a syntax highlighting, and the theme. You can see this like this orange on gray is a little bit hard to, it's probably the thing that's getting flagged. So I might not fix that, to be honest. I don't know. Hope you don't think worse of me. But that's like the only thing that's really getting flagged for accessibility. Although it does give you manual things to check as well. So, if you remember from your previous cohort when we did the accessibility talk and went through accessibility insights, it's a lot of the same things that get picked up there, of like tab order and some of those kinds of things. Those are things that a machine can't really test very well. So you'd have to go through and kind of verify those things yourself. So I've done some of that. And go through a dealing with it. Best practices. It has no comment. It's fine with that, how I did that. So, and then SEO, there's, on mobile especially, it has a problem with how small these icons are, but it's fine. It needs to relax a little bit. All right, so it's not a progressive web app, so it doesn't matter. So anyway, so the scores are better. So Lighthouse, basically, like when I first loaded up the new blog, there were several errors, and it gives you a lot of like really specific kind of direction for how to fix some things. So so that's something that this is a site that I have under my own complete control. I built from the ground up. It has very little code in it, so the scores are high, right? Now let's look at Notion. So Notion is cool, right? Like really neat site, and they must be really good developers and stuff. Like how do you think the scores are on Notion? Just off, after seeing kind of that comparison. Any thoughts?
I've been experimenting actually with Notion in my own personal time.
Mm-hmm.
They're a bit slow to load, so I don't know if their performance score will be a little bit lower.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I guess like 80.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd probably be like a little middle of the road. It looks clean. Doesn't look like you would have a lot to struggle through on the load, even though it loads slow.
Yeah, I mean it's got some fancy stuff going on. Like, well, actually, why did that load as a page? These things are supposed to load as little modals and stuff, It's loading as a page, but it has has a fair amount of JavaScript on it. There's like a pretty sophisticated editing interface. So it's doing a fair bit of work, right? So anyway, let's quit jabbing about it and run the thing. So, and this is the mobile version too again. So that's the mobile one is actually a little stricter. It assumes probably a slower connection, kind of less less resources. Ooh, ouch. Look at that. What is going on? And then that's pretty shameful too, the accessibility score. So yeah, let's see what's going on here. So time to interactive, 14 seconds. It's a long time to wait to be able to interact with the page, right?
They just released in one of their most recent updates.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're saying they have the time that it takes for mobile to start up.
I think that was
this is already a lot better for them.
Yeah. But wasn't that was that their native app, or was that the?
I think it was their native app, because they'd had a GIF side by side, and it was like night and day, but it's still kind of slow in the end.
So there's a concept called performance budgets, and if people are interested in performance, I might have Alejandro, who's one of the mentors, come in and give a presentation just on performance, because it's a great thing to know. I mean, if as you go through your web development careers, there'll come a point, like at the beginning you'll be a generalist and you'll just like kind of do whatever is assigned to you and that kind of thing. At some point you start to go deep in some area. So you want to be broad. It's called being a T-shaped developer. So you're broad, you're across a bunch of different areas, and then you go deep in something. That's like the stem of your T, right? Performance is a really good one to go deep in. And so if it's something that interests you, it's just like how to make a page fast. There's tons of techniques. There's actually a lot to know about, like what I was talking about, like how DNS is negotiated, all those kinds of things. But it's an area you can spend your entire career just studying performance and getting better at that. So if that's something that's interesting, like I could have him, I'm sure he'd be more than thrilled to like do a little presentation on performance stuff. But it is, with a complex application, like it's hard to get right. I mean, especially, this isn't just a web page. Like mine, it's just a simple web page. You just go and you read it. This one has tons and tons of interactivity, right? Facebook is actually a really good example of a very complex app that loads really fast. You can start interacting with it really quickly. And the way that they do that is that they lazy load. I don't know if you know that term, but I'll explain it in a second. They lazy load almost everything. So they have what's called critical CSS, critical JS that's inlined on the page. So as soon as you have the HTML, that stuff is ready to run. And then they start pulling in the JavaScript and the CSS needed to like build up, like the chat thing or like the ads or like all the stuff is kind of asynchronous. And so, it's complex anyway, but like they make it more complex in the service of making the site faster. So I think Notion, they're still new, like it's a pretty new product and stuff. So over time, I think they will start to do some of those same techniques to speed the thing up, I'm sure. I mean, I think they really are, like, they are really good developers, but it's hard to get it right on the first pass. So that's pretty bad, but it is also like it's kind of worth it in a way. Like there's also this thing of like relative to a user's expectations of what value they're going to get out of the thing. If like this is a really cool product, it like saves me a ton of time once it loads, like I'll wait the 15 seconds because it's so useful once it's there, right? So, whereas like a blog post, if it doesn't load right away, I'm like, I don't know, whatever, I'm not going to read it, move on, right? So, yeah, anyway, it's complicated, but plenty of opportunities to fix things. So it turns out that 10.5 seconds and 8.2 seconds here, the main thread work, again, that's JavaScript, and then just JavaScript execution time, that's the bulk of what's slowing it down. So it's loading a ton of JavaScript, it's taking a long time to parse and execute stuff. It's tying up the main thread for a long time. So that's really the thing that's slowing it down. And then accessibility. So this was a little surprising. Like I thought they would just kind of get this stuff right, but they have a sailboat as one of their ARIA labels, and that's because I have a sailboat there. But I don't know why the label would be the sailboat, but that's apparently not a valid label. They have buttons that don't have names. They have images that don't have alt attributes, and that's like table stakes. Like every image should have an alt attribute. Form elements that don't have labels, links that don't have a discernible name. So links that don't have any text in them or something, they're just using them as like hit targets or something, but it's all visual.
What's really interesting about this to me is that a lot of people have been asking them for a long time for an API so they can automate a lot of processes on Notion. And I was like really excited to learn that they're going to roll that out soon. But if a lot of this is like not labeled or things like that, I would feel like that would be hard to automate things on their website.
Oh, because like how would you kind of know what to target on the page itself?
Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe with the API is what people want to do is they want to build like a Zapier integration or something where they can have some stuff and just have it kind of like just saved into their database, and then their application will take care of displaying it on the page, right? But I mean, APIs are great. They could also they could probably in like a single sprint, like a single 2-week sprint, fix all of these accessibility problems. That's what's kind of frustrating about that topic for me is like, it's not that hard. You just have to kind of, know what to do, which does take a little bit of effort to figure that out, but then just prioritize it, So anyway, I was a little surprised that their scores were so low, but like I said, like relative to the value that you're getting from the page, waiting 15 seconds, and that's on a cold cache. So if, the next time you come in, you're not going to have to download the JavaScript. So that part will go away, but you're still going to have to parse and execute it. So, there'll still be a good 10-second delay before we can interact with things. But, it's a really great tool. So I'm willing to put up with it. Anyway, so I would encourage you to just get in there, just generate a report and start poking through and see, maybe some of it doesn't make sense to you, but it's all a bunch of hooks into like, I could Google time to interactive and go down that rabbit hole or whatever. There's a bunch of things there, just a bunch of information that you could kind of just use to just kind of level up in a bunch of areas. So yeah, and it's right there. It's like free right in the browser. So I have no idea how to stop sharing because the interface is totally. Oh, there it is. What do you think?
Thank you. That was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for sharing.
Sure. Yeah. I really just wanted to brag about how fast my blog is.
I use a thing called Site Improve in my job,
mm-hmm.
and it's quite clunky. It's a website called Site Improve, and it does the same thing, but like
mm-hmm.
that's what you've shown us there. So it's good.
Yeah, and I think Lighthouse, like I know the accessibility stuff is built on Axe, which is something you can, like you can run that as a package and just in your CI processes and stuff. So a bunch of pieces of that you could just tie into automated stuff and you can actually have Lighthouse just generate reports for you. Like every time you commit, so you can kind of track performance over time and accessibility over time and stuff, or notice if you borked your SEO or something.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. Good stuff. All right. What are we going to talk? Oh shoot! All right. So okay, should we talk about the upcoming work for the week, or kind of what the state of things is? I guess is what we need to talk about. So we have in peer review, tapping a pin shows info about the place in the lower pane. Is that still? I'm gonna refresh the page. Yeah, okay. So that's in peer review. So is that where that card should be?
Is that our one?
Yeah, so. I think so. I think.
You muted yourself, David.
When I checked yesterday, at least, I didn't see that all the reviews were in, but that might have changed recently. Yeah, it says there's 2 pending reviews still.
Okay, Amber and Matthew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I could take care of that tonight.
Oh no, yeah, no rush. It's fine.
I was sleeping half the day.
Okay, cool. So we'll get that one moving along. I've already given it my approval, so it actually, even though it's in peer review, you could skip the mentor review,
mm-hmm.
go straight to done once you get those other ones. Yeah. And then I guess who are the new pairings? The new pairings are Amber and Jen. You're working together this week, and Ashley and Matthew.
Yep.
So
mm-hmm.
I guess so. Maybe we should talk about 5 and 7, or 5 and 7. And I mean, we'll just talk about both of them, and whoever gets to it first can pick it up, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So fetch places based on the user's location. I don't know, is this, Matthew, from your demo, it almost looks like that's what it's doing. Is that true?
I mean, it seems like it. Yeah. I think we accidentally hopped ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that before when I glanced at that one. It seems like it's already kind of done. So as soon as it moved, it popped up the new ones, the new pins. So.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I think the first AC is done anyway. So use the user's lat long as input to the call to the nearby API. So I think that part of it's done. The other thing is that you should only call the API if there's not already an API call in progress. So what I saw when I first built this is, like the geolocation API is pretty chatty, so it'll send a bunch of locations, and I was firing off a request to the API for every one of them. The app would get kind of overwhelmed because I'd have like 100 API requests, and they'd start timing out and all this kind of stuff. So the idea is like, if once you fire that off, like it doesn't matter how many times it updates the location, it has to return before it can fire the next API call. So maybe you managed to do that, but in case you didn't, like kind of verify that behavior. And if it's not doing that, like there's a couple ways you could probably solve it, but like Does anything come to mind in terms of how to solve that?
So you're saying you just don't want to constantly call to the geolocation API when the person moves?
No, the geolocation API should like is free to just like say here's another location, here's a new location, right? So it'll be spouting off new locations, especially if you're moving. But even when it first fires up, it usually sends a few as it kind of the way that these things work is like it kind of dials into accuracy over time. So it'll kind of jump around a little bit and eventually kind of get like pretty much right where you are. So it'll send a bunch all at once. But what should happen is only that our application should only hit the nearby API when there's not already a call to that API going on.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. Sorry, took me a second.
No, that's all. Yeah, good. Yeah, for sure. That's why we want to clarify. So that half of that's already done. Half of that one's already done. It's just maybe a matter of getting that other piece in place. I guess I asked if there were other ideas of how you might approach that.
I guess somehow put like a call and process Boolean type thing on our when we send to a call to the nearby API, and if it's true. Wait, we're doing it backwards.
I think you're on the right track. I mean, that's one way to solve it for sure. So yeah, you fire off the call, set some kind of flag that says the call's in progress. Once it returns, you set that flag back to nothing's in progress, and then the app is free to make another call, right?
Okay.
Is there any lag time between that because of the way React renders though? So if we make that actual like set state and things like that, since it's like asynchronous nature, is it going to like be is the time difference in that going to be really affecting the app at all? If we took that approach?
The time difference in which part of it? I can there's kind of like this.
Because the way that React works, isn't it that like all the state gets altered at the same time in like a batch process, so that if like the API or the promise is returning a response, like when it's in the off time, or does React do it so fast that it doesn't matter at that point?
I mean, it's pretty fast. There's 2 points where I think what you're talking about could have an effect. So when you're about to make the API call, I guess what I would recommend in this case is that you set the flag and then make the call, as opposed to make the call and then set the flag. Because if React does lag and the thing returns really fast, you might end up like making another call, or like you get another. Sorry, not that it returns really fast, but if the geolocation API sends 2 things in really fast succession before React has a chance to set that state, you might fire off 2 API calls, right?
Yeah.
So what I would do is say like no more calls and then make the call. Like do it in that order. So that like, okay, we're closed for business, but we're gonna make this call next, right? But then when it returns too, like you want it to return and kind of like you probably set the state with the new locations and stuff, and then you take the flag off and allow new calls to be made, right?
Okay.
That's kind of the order of operations I would suggest.
Is there like a later issue, Andrew, where you can stop sharing your location?
Yeah, you can unwatch or something. I think that's maybe what it's called.
Okay.
So that's another approach, sure. So you get a value from it. You're about to make an API call. You unwatch, and then once it returns, you start watching again. That'd be another way to do it. If you want to spend most of your week on this issue, I suggest doing that.
The user clicks stop sharing. That's what I meant. That they stop sharing.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that probably should be an option. There's also a thing that I didn't handle, and I don't think we're handling in this app either. Is it pops up the little thing like allow, don't allow location, and if you click don't allow, the button should go back to the state where you could like start sharing again, right?
Yeah.
My app doesn't. That's a bug in my app. It doesn't do that.
Oh, okay, we should do that. Just in case.
Yeah, and I really should probably specify that in the AC for that issue where we enable the button. But yeah, I tried the watch unwatch thing at first and just found it really hard to manage. It was like you know, just like the timing and stuff was just a lot harder to get right. So you could try it, and just for funsies if you want.
That silence. It's like, do I want that kind of fun in my life? Perhaps not.
Fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, maybe you would get it to work. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of that one. Is that clear enough?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Of course, you can always ask for clarification. So the other one is, this one has 7 AC. So this might be a candidate for breaking up into multiple episodes. Is user can pan the map manually to see places of interest. So the AC start off with, and I don't know if you're all looking at it, but I'll share my screen. There we go. All right. And maybe I'll open this one up. Whoops, that's not what I have to do. Right. 7. There we go. All right. So, the AC start off with add an icon and link to the top left of the app in the header. So that's talking about this guy. That image is in the folder if you want to use the same image. Yeah. So this guy up here. All right. When the map is centered on the user, the header icon should be grayed out. So right now, I haven't started sharing, so actually I'm not sure. Yeah. So if I share, and it centers on, that's nowhere near what I know.
I don't know.
This is what I mean by like not always being super accurate. But so it's centered on me supposedly, and if I move it, you see how it saturates, like the colors come in. And then if I hit that, so that's a little bullseye thing. If I hit that, it'll center back on me, and it grays out again.
Okay.
You see that? So I move it, it turns red. I hit it, and it grays out, and it centers back on. So, when the map is centered on the user, the header icon is grayed out. When a user manually pans, header icon should be shown in color. Not the most accessible thing now that I think about it, but when the user pans the map, an icon should be visible in the center of the map that's distinct from the blue dot. So when I have done this, I have this little, I don't know if you can see the little kind of bullseye thing here. Yep, little crosshairs. That goes away when I center back on the thing, but when I pan manually, it shows up again.
Okay, that's cool.
Right? And that's how you know, like that's a clue to the user that they're not looking at themselves, they're just looking at that's the center of the map. All right, and then when the user pans the map, pins should be fetched using the map center. So if I throw this over here, I think although I have, this is a future story, I'm gonna set this to 0 so it's faster. I guess there are already pins there. So if I move around, like I'll get new pins, right? The user has panned the map, then taps the center on me icon. The map should return to being centered on the user. So that's this one. And then if the user has panned the map should not center on the user again until the user manually indicates that they want to be in that mode. I mean, I guess maybe that's kind of obvious from the other ones, but I must have run into some bug where that was happening for me, so I wrote it down. So yeah, so 7 AC. It might take a little more than a week. I don't know. We'll see.
It's a bit hefty.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. Oh, that's cool.
It seemed like during our demo, number 5 on that was already occurring. Like it was getting the new pins already when I moved around the screen.
Yeah, that might be true. Yeah, I think because y'all hooked it up to use effect, and so yeah, it's like whatever the center is, it's fetching pins or that center. And just like there's two different ways of setting this the center. It's either from the geolocation API or it's the user manually panning. Is that all pretty clear? All right.
Yeah.
So what I think we should do is probably look ahead to another issue in case somebody needs to pick up a second one, right? So this next one is a settings modal. So you just saw it. So the idea is like we have this little gear icon up here. You tap it and you get a modal. For now, it doesn't have to do anything. You just want to kind of get the modal showing and be able to like kind of click on it and dismiss the modal. So when the modal's open, there's a little X that's basically in the same spot as the original icon. So that's a convenience for the user that they can click here and they just click again to get rid of it. They don't have to go searching for that icon or whatever. So add an icon or link to the top right. That's the gear. And then when the user taps, a modal should show over the top of the app. Along with the modal should appear an icon and link in the same spot as the settings icon that can be used to close the modal. And then we'll just give it a heading for now. It says settings. We'll add the rest of it later. And I don't know. Like this modal is so simple. You could probably do it without importing some package. Like modals aren't that hard. Like they're getting them right across tons of screen sizes and like tricky interactions is hard, but I don't know. This one.
Did you already import Materialize, Ashley?
Oh, they might already have
the
them.
Previous weeks. They have a modal class, so we could use that.
Yeah. It's really good. Are those icons are they icons or are they images, Andrea?
Oh, these ones, the X, the gear, and these three are all images.
Oh yeah. So
and the bullseye is an image. This thing is the little crosshairs is it's just it's a character. It's like it's text. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, but this modal is it's just like there's a thing that covers the whole screen. It's just position absolute 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And then the thing inside of it just is positioned just inside of each edge. That's basically all it is. So you could try to write it yourself, or you could, if it's already a Materialize, you might as well use it too. So
yeah,
I'm fine either way. Cool. All right. Is that all clear? Everything good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Makes sense right now, anyway.
Well, as soon as it doesn't make sense, just let me know and we'll clarify and work it out.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. Thank you for your time. Thanks for going a few minutes over. Thanks for all the hard work you're doing. It's great. It's really fun to see your app come together. So already you could go out and use it today if you wanted to.
Yeah.
It'd be fun to use. So
yeah,
it's cool. Yeah. Nice. All right. Well, let me know if you have any questions. We'll see you on Slack.
Okay,
right.
cool.
Thanks a lot.
Good.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.